Hello, Rawlicious souls. I've got the incredible Chris Stockwell, who's a spiritual coach. He's helping people with premature Kundalini and also a business coach as well, because I came to Chris for coaching and we spent 2 incredible months. I've been following his work for a long time.
Mm.
And I'm really grateful, Chris, for your support on my journey. Not just my spiritual journey, but because I was going through some business challenges. I felt it was so linked and connected. I was going through a detox, the 54 days of fruit only. You helped me process that. You helped me go through all these, some deeper work that I knew I needed. Because when you cut out the food addictions, we get stuck and we start to see these unmet needs. And I needed a bit more guidance. I felt a lot of fear. A lot of fear was coming up, some old wounds, some childhood traumas. And you really helped me
Yeah.
navigate. I get goose pimples now, and I'm so excited to have you on because you've really shifted so much for me. You've gone through a lot of my there was a lot of work through that. I knew I've been digging for 3 years since on this raw vegan journey, but the cleanses are getting deeper. My spiritual practice is getting deeper. My business is growing. You've seen the growth of my business. I'm going into a new property, and you've just helped with that whole process. And I know we'll be working together very soon. I believe in coaching and mentorship because we have blind spots. We have things that we just can't quite see or navigate. And you're just having that somebody holding you through it and giving you guidance. And we did the breath work and meditation. We did so much. You offer so much, and I am so grateful for you. And I felt so
Yeah.
safe. A lot of tears came up, a lot of, especially in the initial phases, a
Hmm.
lot of breakthroughs through the releasing. And yeah, I'm forever grateful for you being on this. This was a big, this last 2 months, 3 months has been huge for me. And I'm so grateful for you helping me through that whole journey.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. It's always so good to hear how much the shifts have helped you, because a lot of times, the shifts pay back dividends over the next couple months when we fully integrate and we experience those new higher levels of consciousness, and then new levels of abundance start rolling in, and people and opportunities,
Yeah.
houses. And
Yeah.
it's I'm so
There was a
glad.
lot.
And
There was
you
a
know
lot going on,
yeah.
and you just made it so beautiful, and it was a very sacred journey. There's a lot of growth, like I say, in the business, but I was going through a detox, and then I'm moving, and it was just it was a bit crazy, and I felt unstable. And you just balanced. You just give me perspective and love and kindness, and yeah, amazing journey.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all the kind words. And yeah, that's always my biggest intention, is to facilitate the client and the friend as best I can, just allowing them to grow in their own space. And I use my tools and my resources to cultivate your growth depending on wherever you're at. And that's what I love about one-on-one coaching too, is you're able to do that customized effort to an individual. And because sometimes just following a step-by-step process is not always going to be exactly what a person needs. And being able to at any second, switch the session towards a certain blockage we're facing, or discover some new level of energy and some new idea that's coming in, and start working with it and cultivating it. So yeah, it was really fun working with you and helping your energy expand and work through those blocks. And really grateful for the journey with you as well.
I liked that you was customer. It was a free flow, how I was feeling, and we just connect. We had some structure, but it was also very customized, like you were saying. So, it was all very personal, and I loved that, and I loved
Mm.
your tools that you used, and and it's inspired me now to go deeper on the breath work. A lot of releasing through breath works and energies, because
Mhm.
I do work with energies in the sense of using food. So let's work together. That combined with higher frequency food, higher frequency in our environment, who we surround ourselves, the tools we use, let it be the ones that are going to serve our higher self. And yeah, you just saw all my strengths and brought them out, and just it was I owe so much, and that's why I wanted to bring you on the channel so that others can
Yeah.
see. what you offer and your offerings, and how you facilitate coaching, and your social media, how much value you give. You so much. I've been following you for some time, so just jump
Yeah.
in, get some coaching with Chris, and I love what the next phase that you're doing with the premature, learning to navigate the premature Kundalini. So you're focusing on a lot of
Yeah.
Kundalini work.
Yeah, so I decided to shift most of my spiritual coaching, at least for now. In the future, I'll probably do one-on-ones with individuals based on whatever they need. But I wanted to take a break from one-on-ones for a bit and start focusing on helping people with premature Kundalini awakenings, or what people call a spiritual emergence. And sometimes it's a spiritual emergency. And it's basically something that happened to me in 2016, where I was 2 years into my spiritual journey of meditation and self-work, and I was doing a lot of energy work on my heart space, and I was moving a lot of stuck old energy that I didn't even know where it came from, but a lot of just tense, dense energy that was covering my heart space. And I was doing it a little too much. It was kind of from my ego. I was in this mindset of just heal, 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 instead of letting it myself naturally flow. And because I was accelerating my healing journey a little too fast and digging a little too far into my subconscious than I was actually ready for, I activated this energy, which a lot of people know as Kundalini. Which Kundalini, for an example, it is, I like to call it your most true, authentic self. It's your most authentic self arising from your subconscious. And if you can imagine, when the authentic self rises up and it sees all these different layers of mind and ego and false beliefs and trauma and all this stuff that isn't really you, that's just kind of covering you up, it gets agitated by this emergence. So this energy emerges up, and it has no tolerance for fakeness. It has no tolerance for hiding. It has no tolerance for unconsciousness, because it's a pure crystalline consciousness. And it comes up, and as it's budding its way up, it starts popping out. Oh, here's that childhood trauma that you never even saw, that you repressed when you were like 2 years old. Here's the past life trauma from when you were in a war in the 1800s, or like whatever it is. Like, I'm just using random examples. Or an ancestral trauma from your lineage, where your entire lineage felt like they had to work to make ends meet. So whenever you're not working hard, you're beating yourself up. And then all these energies are arising when we have this emergence a little too early, they arise too fast for us to be able to integrate it into our heart space. And when we don't have time to integrate it into the heart space, what happens is it just feels like you're being beat over the head by anxiety, trauma, pain, and then your thoughts start going really wild, because I like to tell people the mind is a mechanism that transfers energy into stories, and it uses whatever beliefs are in your head. So, some people feel this divine energy coming up and they go, oh no, I am the one that has to save the whole world, and everyone's going to suffer if I don't save everybody. And this energy arises, and they start getting in this egoic hero story about how if they don't do it, everyone they know is going to, die or go to hell, or, different stories can come up that aren't true. And what it really is, oh, I'm recognizing how beautiful and divine existence is, and I'm taking part in that existence. But then the other thing is, trauma can come up, and then this trauma is circulating through your head, and it's creating this story of, oh no, this terrible thing's going to happen, I feel it. Or this person doesn't care about me at all, and they're trying to screw me over. And all these stories can come up as traumatic energies arise, because the mind's not able to balance it, because all of a sudden it went from repression, where the mind had a standard way of running, where emotions would come up just like in the average person. But then when all the floodgates open, Kundalini kind of opens the floodgates to your subconscious. It's a great way of putting it. then it's so overwhelming. And a lot of people also start to think I'm going crazy. Like, this is what I thought. I was like, am I schizophrenic? Like, what the hell is happening to me?
Yeah.
There's no way this is healthy. And usually it's characterized by a lot of intense highs and lows, but the highs usually aren't just this obsessive manic high. It's usually a beautiful, spiritual, open-hearted, silent, present high, you could say. And it's because at that moment you are balancing and integrating the energy. But then, one thing happens and the anxiety gets triggered, and now you're worried about this, that, or the other thing. And so this is something that I didn't have any help with when it happened. I had no idea what was happening. I soon found out it was Kundalini, but at the time there was just internet blogs and resources that were like, just fix your diet. Like, it was all about the physical symptoms of Kundalini. And nobody taught me that it was supposed to happen and integrate into the heart space. Nobody taught me that I didn't need to heal all the stuff that I was seeing in that moment. And I actually needed to work on finding balance and stability in my heart space. And then from there, gradually peeling off the layers and healing the traumas and emotions that were coming up. So I ended up getting in this basically 4 or 5 year journey of intense inner work that was almost a fearful inner work. It was when my mind was saying, you need to heal this or else you're going to go crazy, or you need to heal this or else this bad thing's going to happen. When healing is never like that. Healing is more like, hey, let's heal this, and then life's going to be more fun and more light. But, or don't heal it yet, and life's going to stay basically the same. And healing should never be this obsessive urge to become better. And it should also not be this fearful urge to not be as bad as you were. It should be this love for yourself, where I love myself so much that I deserve to release this. I love myself so much that I deserve to process this emotion. But I also love myself so much that I deserve to rest and have fun and integrate without putting too much pressure on myself. So everything's balanced in that love. And it's something that took me years, which if I had a person like me to guide me, it would have taken me a month or two, still would have gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of tough emotions. But it would have taken me probably, a month or two, maybe 3 months to get back to a place where I felt comfortable, sane, put together, and able to integrate back into my life. But instead, it was, a couple of years of me dissociating and going off on tangents of these weird ideas about my importance or my lack of importance, my how amazing I am or how bad I am. And these energies didn't really stop until I finally started integrating and balancing into the heart. And so it's what I'm really passionate about, because there are a ton of people out there that go through a Kundalini awakening or a spiritual emergence, and they think they're going crazy. And then they go see a psychotherapist, and a psychotherapist diagnoses them. And now they have a belief that they are broken in their mind, when in reality, that was actually one of the most beautiful things that could ever happen to you. It's the blossoming of the human soul. And if they could just have a framework to understand what's happening to them, and have someone there to go, hey, I know what crazy looks like, and you're not crazy. This is just this spiritual energy. And because it's not something that the modern psychiatry has a place for yet. It can be actually very dangerous for people to be misdiagnosed. And one of the main differences between this and mental illness is you'll feel a consistent guidance. You'll feel a consistent force of understanding and guidance that is moving you from step to step. Even if you're kind of losing your mind mentally, the difference is in mental illness, there's not a guiding force. There's kind of a darkness, and there is an intensity to it. And there are moments of light and moments of dark, but you'll feel this sense that things are not right. And that will be a consistent feeling for long periods of time, as opposed to with Kundalini awakening. you'll not only feel highs and lows, but you'll also feel like a couple days where you're like, wow, my heart's open, like things are amazing. They're not manic and they're not depressive. They're just normal and pretty good. And then you'll veer into those kind of manic states and into those lower states. But you'll and what I like to say too is you can tell and you'll feel messages that are saying, no, this is good, this is beautiful. But then you'll also feel your mind saying, oh no, am I going crazy? This looks like the symptom there. But deep down, you'll know. Deep down, a person can tell if what's happening to them is this beautiful awakening. And another key is it's if it was spurred on by inner work and healing, it's probably not you going crazy. It's probably you being exposed to a lot of stuff you weren't ready to see, but it's not you going crazy. But if it's maybe happens because you start yelling at people in a Whole Foods, then maybe you should go see a psychiatrist. And there is a difference, and it's something I can intuitively tell with people. And but it's very important for people going through this to have a framework to deal with an awakening like this, because it makes it infinitely easier when you have someone there to pat you on the back or virtually pat you on the back and go, hey, I went through this same thing and it's the biggest blessing of my life and I wouldn't change it for anything. And what's happening to you is tough, but you're going to move through it and you're going to be so happy and you're going to be so much more capable to give your fullest gifts to the world after it. And you're going to unlock abilities and feelings and experiences that you never could have imagined possible. And so I love to help people understand this, because that's the biggest thing. If you don't understand what you're going through, it can become hell. But if you understand what you're going through, it just becomes work. It just becomes a process. It becomes a journey.
Yeah, it does. It does help when you've got that support. And even those, I feel like what you're saying, sometimes when you really get into wanting that change so much, you're catapulting, and sometimes it is too much. So especially on like cleanses, there's they're really sort of like accelerating this journey, and it's scary. For some, this is why they may not actually go through the cleanse, because it's too much, because they're not using, and I don't just mean in this, but just to give an example, but when you're not using food to suppress, because a lot of people do use food to, I did the same through my journey, through my spiritual awakenings, and I've had a few and really some intense ones, and that last the 54 day, I definitely, something was happening, lots of shifts, a lot of movement, and it's scary, and sometimes you don't know what to do with it. I was crying a lot, wasn't I? Remember in the beginning of the calls, I was releasing so much, but I didn't want to go through that alone. I think nearly on every cleanse I've had some mentorship, just because I know the levels you can get to, especially when we're taking out those foods that we're addicted to that do suppress. So it helps. It does help us having this process with someone else, and that's what you could you give any. So when people have come to you, what others have experienced through knowing that they're going through this Kundalini. I've mentioned about, very likely a lot will experience it through cleansing, but what other scenarios, examples can you share?
Yeah, a lot of time with this specific offer that I have and this help that I give to people, a lot of the time it'll be people that have full-time jobs, and all of a sudden they are having panic attacks at work. They're not able to hold a conversation because they feel this rising panic coming up, because and they can kind of notice that other people are kind of freaked out by them a little too, because when this energy is rising, it can disrupt other people's fields as well. And so they kind of feel this sense of losing their normal identity. They lose, it's causes an ego death. So they're not able to follow their old unconscious patterns. That's the best way to say it. They're not able to just go into autopilot anymore. Autopilot gets ripped out and removed from their system, and every moment becomes them trying to clamor for some sense of stability. And oftentimes people will, for me, I remember I heard the word Kundalini in my head. I'd probably heard of the word Kundalini yoga, but I had no idea what Kundalini was until I right that night that I had my awakening. And I have a whole YouTube video too that is amazing to kind of describe the process. And it's what a lot of people have found me through. It's a YouTube video, and it details kind of the ups and downs of my initial awakening and what happened. And I remember about 8 hours into it, I kept hearing this word in my head, Kundalini, Kundalini, Kundalini. And I was like, what does that mean? I've seen that before. And I Googled Kundalini, and the first website that came up was like, don't worry, you're not going crazy. And that was my whole thing. I was like, am I schizophrenic now?
Yeah.
And the whole thing said, don't worry, you're not going crazy. You're having a Kundalini awakening. And it was like the computer was talking to me. And I went on the website and looked at the symptoms of it, which, there's a lot of physical symptoms. It's the same as when you hear ascension symptoms, but they're amped up to like an insanely high degree, where you'll have hot flashes, cold flashes. You'll have your body will get tense and have fatigue in certain muscles. You might feel like feverish. You'll feel this dense brain fog where you can't even think straight sometimes. You'll also, on the positive side, you'll feel these openings of bliss and even pleasure in the body that just arise out of nowhere and erupt. You'll feel an onslaught of childhood emotions arise, as well as a deep sense of terror, usually because of how jarring the experience is. You might feel tingles and vibrations in the body. You might even hear sounds. I used to hear this sound that sounded like metal clanging, really loud.
Wow.
I sometimes still hear it now. I'm not sure what it is. Might be some form, like some angel or entity that comes through, but you'll start seeing auras a lot of the time. You'll see sacred geometry when you close your eyes. It's really crazy. A lot of stuff can happen, and all of that can happen or none of it, and it can still be an awakening. But usually, with most people, at least half of those things are happening on a pretty consistent basis.
I was just going to say, is that consistently, like quite a daily?
Yeah, and especially in the first couple weeks, and then you usually find a way to stabilize, and usually you'll stabilize in a way that's not good, and you actually will go into a state where you don't feel like yourself, but you feel normal again in a way, and you're able to handle your tasks. And that's usually the point where people will come to me. Usually they don't find me as soon as they could and would be better, which is right when it happens. So usually it's a couple weeks into it, they'll start researching it, understanding it, and they've kind of stabilized into a new ego that's usually more dense than the last one, but it's usually a very thin layer that we can kind of sweep away as we bring them more into the heart space. And ideally, you don't want to hide away in a new version of your ego. You want to embrace the unknown and jump right into the heart space and learn how to live in the present moment through your heart space instead of through this newly formed egoic structure.
Do you feel people are more like, because there'll be others thinking this, I don't know what it is, but they don't understand it, so they don't feel it that. So do you feel there's more people now realizing there's something more than, there's something deeper, there's something more of a spirit, like you saying they have this sense to just know there's something? Do you find there's more people waking up to that now?
Yeah, that's one thing with Kundalini. I think what in the past people might have had that, and they still had that guidance telling them like, this is good, look up this. A lot of people tend to find their way to that and understand what had happened to them. But then they just usually get wrapped up back into their life once they restabilize, but they're usually a little more off than before, which sucks. Not good for them. And it's usually a little harder for them to move into their heart space because um, they don't want to go into the chaos and turmoil anymore. So they don't want to open into the heart because it scares
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So yeah, and nowadays there's a lot more resources and people that are educating on this. And then there's a lot of people that know about Kundalini before it ever happens to them.
Mm.
And then what I don't like is there's a lot of people seeking Kundalini awakening, which I want to briefly touch on that. You should never directly seek Kundalini awakening. Um, any true form of Kundalini work, any true teacher is going to focus on the heart space. Even a Kundalini yoga teacher, they shouldn't be teaching you to tap directly into Kundalini because that's your mind going to the Kundalini, and those forces together create chaos.
Wow.
What we want to do is focus on the heart. So you can never really mess yourself up by focusing on balancing your heart more. Because the more balanced your heart is, the more you can handle any spiritual experience.
Yeah.
So when you focus on the heart and you expand your heart, you expand your aura, you keep that nice balance in the heart space, then as your heart expands and gets big enough, then it's going to wake the Kundalini up. And then the Kundalini is going to have this warm, cozy, safe space to arise into, which it's still going to trigger your childhood trauma, still going to bring up your past life stuff, still going to bring that up. But now it's in this field of stillness and this energy of love and acceptance. And it makes it so much easier to deal with all the things that it's going to bring up. As opposed to, let's say your heart's a little closed or a little bit hyperactive, and then your mind is like doing all this breath of fire to like activate your Kundalini and make it rise. Then what happens is it's almost like it's like this wildfire. It just starts burning everything and opening every door, and it just wants to go back to truth, and it doesn't know how to get back there. That's why it needs to be guided. And the heart space is kind of like the mediator. So the heart space is like, okay, Kundalini, I know you want to wake up completely, but there's also a human being here that needs to handle that awakening. So let's, slow that down. Let's integrate into love. And then the heart also has that guidance from above where it's not listening to your mind, it's listening to your higher self. So the heart can kind of translate messages from the higher self down to the life force energy, which is the Kundalini, and make it so much easier. And so I have a couple friends that have had Kundalini awakenings through opening their heart space, like through a couple of them through Joe Dispenza retreats and just through energy work of opening the heart. And they had no trouble. Like it was, let me rephrase that. They still had tough times with the awakening because it's so strong.
Yeah.
But they didn't struggle with it in the way that I did or that I see other people where they go lower, These people, it was still tough for them and it still is tough to integrate, but they're able to handle it so much easier because they have the most important tool for Kundalini, which is an accepting and non-judgmental heart. So that whatever weird, because Kundalini can bring up weird energies. Kundalini can bring up dark sexual energies. It can bring up terror. It can bring up violent feeling energies that don't make logical sense to your mind. Because a lot of time they're from your DNA. They're from because a lot of our ancestors had to kill to survive, 10,000 years ago. A lot of our ancestors also did terrible things, as we can see by looking at history. Like that's all our ancestors. So, a lot of that energy is still in our DNA.
Yeah.
And then also we as souls have done questionable things in past lives. So Kundalini has no concern for what's the humans, and it wants to just cleanse the consciousness itself. So it has its own agenda, and it needs to be mediated with the higher self and the heart space. And it should not be in cohorts with the mind because the mind will take it down weird paths of of fear and also weird paths of pride.
Wow, interesting. And have you had quite a few where you've helped them go through those darkest times where it's gone, they've led it with the mind? How do you resolve that if they've gone down using, those that have really encouraged the Kundalini awakening?
Yeah. And yeah. And it's also not just people that have encouraged it, because I only mentioned that, but also sometimes it's spontaneous. Like sometimes it just has to do with the structure of your mind, where Kundalini just can snap through your sense of self and arise. Some people have Kundalini awakenings when they don't even know anything spiritual. And that's really scary, because those people usually just end up thinking they're crazy because they have no context at all for what's happening to them. And so it can happen randomly. It can also happen from provoking it. And then the ideal way it happens is your heart is so expanded and loving that it wakes up. So what I usually start with is reminding people that your mind is going to play tricks on you, because there is some strong, potent energy that's arising in your consciousness, and your mind has no context for it. So your mind is going to use whatever your beliefs are and try to make sense of that feeling. So, you'll see a lot of people thinking they're like the reincarnation of the Buddha or Jesus or something. That usually these people don't seek me out for help because they're on their own hero journey where they think they need to go save the world. Or they'll have a story. The most common one is I'm going crazy. Or, what's funny is another story that's never true is I can't handle this. That's the biggest lie ever that comes up in Kundalini is I can't handle this. You know who can't handle it? The ego. The heart can handle it all. The heart is like, oh, cool, Kundalini energy, nice. Like we can always handle it, or else it wouldn't be happening. So these different lies come up, and the first thing I do is explain to them, hey, your mind is going to spin stories because you're experiencing intense trauma from your ancestry and it has no context. You might even think that I'll see a lot of people start believing that they had certain childhood traumas that they didn't. Wow. So this will happen where they think maybe, they had a sexual trauma, but they had never had any memory or any signs of it growing up. But all of a sudden they experienced sexual trauma energy, and they attribute it to their own childhood because they have no context that it lives in your DNA. And, things could have happened to your great grandma that you are now responsible, not really responsible, but you are now present with. And so a lot of times, or different things can come up, and then your mind can lie to you, spin a story about your past or about your future or about your now. And the main thing is when Kundalini is arising, remember to stay in a state of unknown, because it's the hardest thing to do, but we always want to figure it out. We always want to go, this is what's happening, or this is what's happening, or this bad thing happened. That makes sense. Or this good thing's going to happen. That makes sense. And it's like, maybe, but let's stay in the maybe for now, because it's not one of the least important things is for your mind to figure something out. That's not important. What's important is for us to encourage the blossoming of that energy into the heart space. And the mind does not have to be very involved in that. It doesn't have to know everything. So reminding them that to doubt their mind and to trust the presence in their heart in the moment, which whenever we tune in, most of the time, 99% of the time, the presence of this moment is saying, hey, everything's okay. You're good. Everything's fine. And when they can get out of their head and tune into that, they can feel this peace of, oh, actually, everything's okay. Even though my mind is like, oh, what happened when I was a kid? Oh no, am I like the reincarnation of someone and I need to save the world from hell? Or like, or this person actually secretly hates me and they've been lying to me our whole friendship. And it's like, whoa. Maybe, but let's set those aside and let's deal with what's actually important now, which is you healing and integrating the energy of this experience. And a lot of time what stands in the way is people want to jump to the big things like solving their past life or fixing all of their issues with money or all their issues with social anxiety. And it's like, let's just start by finding your childhood wounds with your mom and dad that caused you to not feel safe living in your heart. That's the whole thing, is if someone feels safe in their heart, then Kundalini can arise, and it's usually not going to disturb anything in a big way. It's not going to disturb their life path. It might disturb their present moment a couple times. It's not going to disturb their journey, though. But when people can't rest in the heart, they only rest in their mind, and that's how they've always rested. Then when Kundalini comes up, now you can't rest in your mind, you can't rest in your heart. So what do? Usually you create a new mind that is more tense to hold all that energy. But what we should do is work through the childhood trauma so that you can clear a space in the heart to rest in. And once they can rest in the heart, usually the mind calms down a lot, and they learn this process of trust, where instead of figuring it out and then now I know, so now I can feel safe, because that's how they learned as a kid to feel safe, is once I know, once I understand, or once this person behaves this way, or once my life looks like this, I'm safe. And instead go, no, I'm safe because I'm here now in this moment, and my heart is all I need. So it's this process of deconditioning their addiction to mind and learning to rest in their heart and learning to find that resting place.
Yeah, and it's where you feel that balance of navigating through daily challenges. There's not this chaos and these fears, and they're not feeling safe. It's a warm feeling. And when you have that, and that's what does it look like for them when they've processed this? I can share my experience. Like I said, that a lot of the challenges I was facing, and I felt, there was a sense of peace in my heart, knowing and trusting. And that's what that for me is worth way more than anything. So what did you see in your clients and yourself? What did it look like life was like after this experience, especially when you've had the support? I know you didn't, but now for those that did, and then when you've obviously closed the gap for a lot of others, so at least it's not this scary for such a long time, and you can share your experience.
It looks like a lot more peace. Also a big reduction in storytelling in their mind. They're not off on a mission mentally to save the world. They're actually in this moment loving their life and doing what's in alignment. And through that, they are saving the world, because that's how we save the world, really, is by living through our hearts and transmuting what is here now and loving what is here now and loving the people that we have in our life. So it switches from this storyline of like how they're going to take over the world and like help everyone, or something more negative, like the storyline about how they broke their brain by doing too much spiritual work or something, or sometimes it's triggered by psychedelic use, which is a more different area, because sometimes that can be mental illness. So I'm very discerning when that's the thing that provoked it. But 99% of the time, if breath work or energy work provoked it, it's Kundalini. It's not mental illness. So it looks like a lot more peace. It looks like a lot more space between the thoughts. It still looks like a lot of processing and encountering really dense, fiery emotions that they maybe didn't have to deal with the past 10 years or something, since whenever they were really exposed to their heart. And but then also it looks like unlocking your spiritual gifts. It looks like a lot of synchronicities start happening in your life. For me, it's without having that, there's no way I could have been a spiritual coach. There's no way I would have followed that path. There's no way I would have trusted myself in those moments if I hadn't learned to trust my guidance during my Kundalini. And if also, I don't think I would have even been able to spiritually coach people before having that. Me personally, I know different people have different talents and skills, but a lot of my gifts and tools and abilities that I use with my clients came from my awakening, directly from that, and directly from me integrating that experience. So yeah, it looks like them restabilizing and then unlocking new potentials in themselves, and then finding new synchronicities in life that are guiding them to new people, new career paths, new a lot of times when people have Kundalini awakening, their whole old career just collapses,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, or their old relationship, maybe they're in a relationship and that collapses out of nowhere. So it looks like a lot of shifts and a lot of brand new things, still struggling sometimes with processing, and still getting overwhelmed sometimes, but having the tools to not get freaked out by that, and finding a way to recenter themselves when those things have happened, so that they don't recenter into this mind that's kind of off to the side, but they recenter into the center, into their heart. And it also looks like them usually building deeper relationships, because a lot of time before a big awakening, you don't realize how surface level a lot of your connections were. And then as you awaken, at first, you disconnect from others because you can't connect to them in the inauthentic way you used to. And then as you stabilize back in the heart, it looks like you basically only being able to hold authentic, real connections with others. Like for me, I can't even have an inauthentic relationship with a friend. Like it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to be fully inauthentic, it's going to feel like we're missing each other on different wavelengths. I can't even go back into that. I can go into it for a moment, but I can't go into it in a way that would make me want to see them and hang out with them consistently. So it also ends up in you finding a lot more realness in your life. So in a lot of areas in your career, your friendships, your relationships, where there was a lot of surface level stuff, at first it's scary because you lose a
Yeah.
lot of that. It feels
Lonely.
like you're dying in a way. You're losing a lot of what used to serve you in a way.
Yeah.
And you learn a new groove. Humans are so adaptable. We're the most adaptable creatures. And we adapt very fast. And I guess it's just good to adapt into a higher state rather than to
Yeah.
adapt into a low state where you're afraid. Some people, they have Kundalini and now they're afraid of other people. They don't
I was just
want to
gonna say,
connect.
yeah, yeah,
They disconnect, they go in hermit mode, which sometimes is part of their journey. But if
yeah.
it's happening for years on end, it's because you're afraid of jumping back into the chaos and finding your own balance in your heart.
Yeah. And do you see others like help because they've gone on this journey? There's more people sharing their experience because there is a little, it's people are shifting. I'm seeing a big shift in the world with this, with esoteric. It's much more known, but there's still a lot of fear around it. So that's another block that people put up, don't they? They think, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going through this, but it's too weird. Like I can't, and I don't even want to share it. They don't want to share their experience. Do you find there'll be someone, and I know they'll be reaching out to you, feeling that I don't want to, and it's so scary going to want to accept that they're going through this, but then to share it with others. I suppose they don't have to share the process, and this is where coaches come in, like yourself.
Yeah, I can speak personally for me that I haven't fully stepped into making this my main focus until now because I was scared. Because
Yeah,
I'm scared because it's the most personal thing that's ever happened to me, really. And I'm scared to be as vulnerable to share the ups and downs that I've been through. And because I don't want the backlash and the people misdiagnosing me or saying, hey, you're wrong. This is bad. This is illness. This is this. This is that. And so I can imagine but what really provoked me to do this was I was thinking about that. And then I was like, but wait a second, there are people out there that are listening to those people and they're having a Kundalini awakening. So if I'm even scared of them and I have a strong belief in my journey and I know because it's blessed me so much, then what about the person that doesn't have that belief in themselves? They're going to get swept in to what someone else is saying about how they're broken and about how they need to go antidepressants or how they need to do this or do that. So my own awareness of my hesitancy is actually what made me jump into this, because I realized people need a voice. People need someone to show the, not the final end result, but someone who's made it through all the dark parts of that. And now at this point, 80-90% of the effects in my life from Kundalini are amazing blessings, incredible blessings, like beyond, like mind-blowing type blessings. The amount of synchronicity that happens in my life, the states of bliss that I go into, the depths that I can go into another person and help them and connect. And so I want to be a symbol of a later point in the journey for a lot of people that are in the early parts of the journey where it's kind of very hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I want to be the light at the end of people's tunnel, so that they can see that it's so worth it, the work they're doing, and that it doesn't have to be so scary, and it also doesn't have to be so luckily for people experiencing this, they don't have to go and tell their friends and family everything. They can just kind of watch my content and recognize that in themselves, and then they can reach out to me. Like right now I'm building a digital course for people with Kundalini awakenings so that I can help as many people as possible. And then I'm going to build a group that some people that want to do something more can go into my group coaching container that's going to help support them in a deeper way. And then most of my content now is going to be focused on educating people on Kundalini and helping people understand Kundalini, that even if it hasn't happened to them, but it might in the future, so that they already have that in the back of their mind for when it does happen. Also to encourage people to keep focusing on their heart. So maybe I spark some genuine aligned Kundalini awakenings. I don't like saying it like that, actually. All Kundalini is aligned because, our highest self is guiding everything. So even in people where it's a premature awakening, it's in a weird way, it is still meant to be. But we don't want to encourage people to go down that path because it's so much easier if they awaken it through the heart. But I didn't like how I said it's that one is aligned and one's not, because any Kundalini awakening truly is aligned. Right. Because it literally is alignment reaching up through you and aligning you. It just can take longer in others and cause problems in their journey. But, hopefully I can encourage people to refocus, even people that have had awakenings. A lot of them get obsessed with the Kundalini energy. Yeah. And you see some people online, and like, not judging them or anything, it's their own journey, but they use Kundalini from their mind. So they usually have like eyes like this, and they're like, let's do the energy work, and they're like doing all this crazy energy work, and you can feel that they're not living from this like light childlike heart space. They're kind of from this like, wow, I'm so powerful. And it's
I've seen that one of my friends actually went through that.
And it's enough. I've been there many times. It's nothing to judge. It's just sometimes they get confused because they want to reach the heights that Kundalini can take them to. And they don't want to they want to take the elevator instead of the stairs. And it's really better to take the stairs. And it really disconnects them from other people, and usually creates a sense of pride. And that's usually how they can contain the Kundalini energy, is through a pride, like where the energy gets denser, but it's like holding still. It's like a weird thing that happens to some people. And it's not, it's not it's not the best for them, you know.
Yeah.
They're usually not happy. Like that's what I see is like they're not happy. They usually don't laugh that much. That's another key sign. They don't tell jokes, they don't laugh.
Yeah,
They're
it's
usually
serious.
very serious, and they derive all their pleasure in life kind of from like commanding the Kundalini, and they're
Yeah.
able to manifest a lot usually because it's a very strong energy,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's very unstable, and it always collapses eventually. Whether sometimes they can last through their whole life, but it's eventually going to collapse because it's not real. It's like a ego illusion. It's a spiritual ego. And so that's why we want to focus on the heart, and we want to send love to the Kundalini, but we don't want to use the mind to yank the Kundalini up. And we definitely don't want to be telling the Kundalini to go do something. We want the heart to be holding the Kundalini in the space. And from there, the heart can guide your full soul to do healings and to manifest, including the Kundalini. But we don't want to use it as like the head. You know,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be more of the
Yeah.
tail. It's supposed to be the
Right.
kind of the fire from the spaceship that's pumping backwards. It's not supposed to be the guiding force of the spaceship. The heart should be in the driver's seat,
Love
and the
that.
higher
Yeah.
self in connection. And then the
Mm.
Kundalini should be moving you forward energetically through time and space, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it should be the one doing all the work, and neither
Mhm.
should the mind, you know? And usually, if the Kundalini is front and center, so is the mind, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to control yourself, and you would come across as really unbalanced.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
There's a, there's a better way,
funny to
and
think about.
sorry.
Yeah, it's just funny to think about because it's so confusing for some people because it is a
That,
beautiful divine energy, but we more want to like let it be. We don't want to like be trying to control it. We want to be opening our heart as big as it
surrendering.
can. Yeah, surrendering. Exactly, exactly. It's about surrendering and then just
Yeah.
being letting your mind handle normal human tasks
Yeah.
and not having your mind be like the spiritual crown.
Yeah.
Like the mind should be there to handle 3D things. The mind is not there to handle spiritual things. The mind can have some spiritual understandings and it can help, but the guide should always be the heart. And because the heart listens to the higher self.
Mhm.
And the mind can listen to the higher self, but usually it also has its own agenda. So yeah, it's getting kind of complicated now, and I don't want to confuse people,
Yeah. There's
um,
a lot.
but we it's well you get an intuitive sense of how things would be most peaceful and happiest for you, and it's integrating in the heart. It's not controlling your life force energy and commanding it to create things for you.
Yeah. It's much more, like I say, the benefits that come through that. The life is so much more fulfilling and beautiful.
Mm,
Having that sense of peace and safety, because that was a lot of my biggest fears
yeah,
was the safety aspect, not feeling safe in the world, not feeling loved. And that
yeah.
process is so sacred, isn't it? And to have that and have someone guide you through it is, yeah, it's a beautiful experience. And I'm so grateful that you are offering that and you didn't keep quiet and now you're helping others. If they do want to
Yeah.
find more about you, Chris, where's best to find you?
So on all my platforms, my on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, which are my main three platforms, I changed my TikTok. I have a new TikTok, so I have two TikToks.
Oh,
But
really?
you can find me. Yeah, I want to do niche focus on Kundalini. So my new
Yeah,
TikTok name is Kundalini Chris.
right.
And then my bigger TikTok that has 300,000 followers is at chris.stockwell underscore. And that's the same name that I have on Instagram. And that's the same name that I have on YouTube. Usually you could look up just Chris Stockwell and I'll pop up. I haven't Googled my name in a while, but I think that I would probably pop
Do.
up first.
Yeah. I'll put it
Especially
in
if
the
you put like
description.
coach or yeah, so you could find it in the description. And then And then the other thing I've been putting my energy into is LCA, which is the Liberated Coaching Academy, where I help people become an amazing coach. So it's a 2-part academy. It helps them with the business side and the social media side, but it also helps them learn how to teach breath work, learn how to guide meditations, learn how to hold space for people, and how to structure a coaching session and a coaching program, so that you can deliver your gifts in the best way and in the most aligned way.
I'm
So
interested
that's
in
the whole
that,
thing I've been
Chris.
focusing on.
I'm
Awesome.
interested in that. Yeah, I'll be once I get settled. I'm definitely interested in that. Oh, exciting! Yeah,
Yeah. So we're building a whole video course around it, and we're gonna do we have like 10 videos in it already for because we have we've had 5 members, 2 of them have graduated, but we have 3 currently, and it's kind of like our beta testing phase before we really are pushing it. Um, So yeah, it's been really good helping people learn a couple tools to help people, but also facilitate whatever their gifts are. Because some people come into the program and have very unique gifts or tools, and we help teach them how to structure them into a format that will impact their clients, and how to use other tools that have been proven to work with 100+ clients of mine and my business partner Dylan.
yeah. That was so helped my clients with a lot of their stuck energy. Oh, it's a great. There's so many great tools that I love. I always want to give them things that's personable to them, and having much more of a yeah, toolbox is incredible, right? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yay. So
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
share that.
that would be awesome. I'd love to work with you again in some way.
Yeah, definitely. So if those that do want to work with Chris or want to know more about Chris's work, that's all in the description box as well. So I'll make sure those
Yeah, just
all.
DM me on Instagram, or I'll put my email there too. And if they want to just shoot me an email, and then we can discuss and get on a call and talk about whatever's going on, and see if it would be a good fit to work together.
Wonderful, thank you. So we always end the calls with the be, feel, and stay Rawlicious. So, Chris,
Hmm.
you want to say it with me?
Wait,
After
say it
three.
again. So
So we
be
go
what is
be, feel, stay Rawlicious. I'll do it with you.
okay. Okay.
After three.
Three,
1, 2,
two,
3.
one. Be,
Be,
feel,
feel,
stay
stay
rawlicious.
Rawlicious. And then I go a kiss and a little yay.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. So beautiful.